Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Waxcast, episode 30. I'm Wax, and today I am joined by a fellow conservative influencer, young person, etc., etc. She's also a Prager Force ambassador, and she runs the capitalist Isabella TikTok channel. I think it's called channel. I'm not cool enough to know. I want to welcome to the program Isabella Riley. Isabella, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Gavin.
So I wanted to bring you on because it's always great to talk to people who are, of a similar age. I think we both live in pretty blue states and, we're conservative. So it's interesting, that dynamic and what's going on. But you've built a pretty big platform for yourself on TikTok, of all places, a platform that not a lot of people really could think of when they think of conservatives. But I've been on TikTok a lot, and I see tons of conservative content that gets a ton of reach. It definitely has its cons and its pros, but compared to, say, Twitter and Facebook and this massive big tech clampdown, it seems to be marginally better. Am I wrong in saying that, or?
So what's great about TikTok is you definitely can get a lot of organic reach, right? The only page that people scroll on TikTok is the For You page, which is all pretty much random. Yes, there's an algorithm, but it does give you a chance to get exposed to so many new people. But what I will say is the censorship is still the same. I get videos taken down all the time. I mean, every single day, it's not really TikTok doing it per se, but it's all the liberals and the leftists. They mass report my videos all the time. I even get it in my comment section all the time. People bragging about reporting my videos. I've had to start blocking people because if you're going to brag about reporting my videos in my comments, you're going to get blocked because I don't want my account to get banned, which it did get permanently banned about a couple weeks ago. So
how'd you reverse that? That's pretty impressive that you came back from the grave.
Yeah, so this is basically what happened. It was like right around Christmas, I would wake up every single day, have 5 to 6 videos removed. And every time a video is removed, you have to submit an appeal and plead your case. And I was just so sick of doing it. I was like, why do I have to keep writing papers to get my videos back? It's annoying. And every time
it takes longer to write the paper than it does to make the videos sometime, I'm guessing.
Literally. So I was like, I'm just not doing these. And I should have done them, but I didn't. And every time you get a video taken down, there's a strike against your account. So one day I woke up and it said, you are temporarily suspended from posting for a week. And I was supposed to be unbanned January 5th. But then halfway through that week, I woke up and my account was permanently banned. And so I had to, the way I got it back was I literally found every TikTok email you could find. I wrote literally over 4,000 page essay pleading my case. I printed out their community guidelines, really just went through it all, kept emailing 9 of their emails from 4 different email accounts every single day, the same thing, DM'd them on Twitter, Instagram, and finally one day I woke up and my account was back. But yeah, I still get videos taken down now. It's very frustrating. Well,
that definitely is frustrating, but at least you're back, because on Twitter, they just ban you and you pretty much have no recourse. I mean, I've lost a few thousand followers, and I know people have just been disappeared off the platform completely, like our former president, President Donald J. Trump. But on TikTok, I mean, what's your success been like? What's your best videos? What kind of reach? What kind of follower counts? And how quickly did it grow? And also, what prompted you to start it to begin with? Because it seems like just kind of an interesting way to, talk about conservative talking points, essentially.
Right. So basically my whole life I've been super political, psychopath. People will joke about, oh, your only personality is Trump or politics. And I'm like, honestly true. Anyone that knows me, that's literally all I talk about. It's very annoying. So I've always wanted a career in politics, and I just saw, I was on TikTok. It was it's a fun app, to be honest. I haven't been on Instagram for years since I went to college. I just stopped using Instagram, and I was just on TikTok, and I saw these conservative creators, getting a ton of reach, meeting a ton of people, actually doing something. So, but it took me a while. I was watching TikTok for a long time before starting one because I thought it was kind of stupid, and I was like, am I going to embarrass myself? Then I didn't even start my account until the end of October, so a couple months ago. And I'm almost at 90,000 followers. So it's very fast growth, honestly.
I mean, that's awesome. I mean, that's great. And I mean, I wish, we have to, my view of it is that people have been moving to Parler before it got banned, and then Gab, and then all these other alternative tech platforms, which I'm fine with. I think we definitely need alternative tech platforms to compete. So it's not just a monopoly market, but at the same time, I've always had this aversion to people, particularly on the right, conservatives, just kind of forming these ideological online ghettos where they just go to their own little app and they just talk to each other, and it's an echo chamber. And I don't think that's really going to help us in any way. I don't think talking talking to people that already agree with us is going to do anything. I mean, on TikTok, depending on what you like, you could show up in someone's, FYP, and then all of a sudden, if they watch a few videos, maybe they'll change their mind. But that'll never happen if there's an alternative to TikTok, which I think there is. I heard there is some kind of new
Clapper.
Clapper. Yeah, that's a horrible name. Horrible name. But yeah,
Yep.
so like if you're already on Clapper, like you're probably already a conservative. You don't need to see more up. You don't have to see other conservatives. That's just a way to remove us from the culture, remove us from, the talking, like from being at the discussion table. So I don't know. That's my view.
I totally agree with you. They don't want us spreading our ideas to the left because they make sense, right? You don't censor things because, I love the leftist lie that, oh, we're only censoring these people or Trump because they're spewing lies. That is just so blatantly ridiculous. And I get like so many TikTok comments whenever I talk about that. They're like, yeah, well, it's good to be censoring and removing accounts that spread disinformation or misinformation. And I'm like, wow, I cannot believe you guys believe that, because the amount of lies that are spewed on social media all the time. And obviously they're afraid of people seeing the truth, the good side. Right. When it came to like the 2020 election and they were censoring every tweet had a warning for Trump, especially, right. But, videos were taken down like immediately. You couldn't click on links that people were tweeting. They did that because they wanted to make sure that the least amount of eyes actually saw that side. They wanted to make it so the least amount of people saw it. And that's just what was the case. So yes, I think it's my whole philosophy is I just try to be on everything. The one thing I'm not on is Facebook. I don't know why.
Okay. Interesting.
I'm just not on Facebook, but
honestly, Facebook kind of sucks, to be honest. Like, it's like pages and things like it's just, even like Twitter has its problems, but like I've always found Twitter like way better for politics than Facebook. Like I'll post stuff to Facebook and it's like it's just not the same. It's not YouTube. It's not like just video content. Facebook tries to do everything, but it's like doesn't do anything particularly well. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
It's kind of like the same logic as, when you have so many laws in a country, it becomes a lawless country. When there's so many laws,
that's true.
To break them. So it's kind of like this too much going on, just too much chaos. Yeah.
Well, we have some stupid laws like Section 230, which basically, makes these big tech monopolies protected from any sort of, legal liability for what's on their platforms. The law made sense when it first came out. They didn't want to, they wanted these new businesses to emerge and grow and not be, suffocated by lawsuits and that sort of thing. But the way it's written, it's supposed to be do not editorialize. You have to operate as a platform, which is basically, let people essentially do what they want to do on the platform, as long as they're not breaking the law or calling for direct violence, that sort of thing. But it doesn't give a carte blanche to censor, manipulate, editorialize based on your own political views, which is exactly what they're doing. So even as the law is written now, Twitter should be stripped of 230 protections, and they should be, liable for, defamation or whatever kind of lawsuit that someone wants to bring. But they get the best of all worlds. They get protected from lawsuits, which a newspaper or a TV channel won't get. And at the same time, they get to editorialize just like those newspapers and just like those TV stations do. So it's a totally rigged system.
I completely agree. And that's exactly how I describe it too. It's the best of both worlds, right? They can act like they're a big free speech platform. Like, we're just a platform. We don't want to be liable for what people say on it. So don't hold us accountable. But at the same time, we're acting as publishers because we get to decide which content gets to stay up on the platform. Also, I think it was recently, within the past couple months, I think around the election time, maybe before, but Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas said that we need to eventually look into Section 230 again, because it's not being applied the way it was written. Right. So it's not.
And there are people who are just legitimately calling for it to be not just necessarily completely revoked. Like I would be open to that, but I don't think that's the number one priority. I think we need to have some laws that protect platforms so we can have platforms like what Twitter was originally supposed to be, but it needs to be reformed. And everyone says, oh, they're a private business, let them do their thing. It's like, but you can't be pro-market, but then support a government privilege. It's a government handout. It's a privilege. They're giving them protection that other businesses and companies do not get. So that's not a free market. That's a bias market. That's a market that's favoring one industry, one company over others. Because if I wanted to do something similar, but in traditional media, not digital, I would not have 230 protections. So the people claiming they're a free market and they support 230 as it's currently being applied, it just seems totally hypocritical.
Right. So I definitely lean on the libertarian side of conservatism. That's kind of why I am now like my first original TikTok account was Conservative Isabella. Now I say Capitalist Isabella because I don't really love the direction of more. I don't know if you've heard this term. There's a bunch of new like terms for political ideologies I've seen on TikTok, but paleoconservatism. It's more authoritarian, right? I'm anti-authoritarian government overall. So my perspective, so that's why the big tech censorship is a very hard issue for someone like me who does lean libertarian. And I guess there's no perfect answer, but my position on it is, well, the reason why they're able to have these protections is because the government got involved, and now they're kind of twisting the law or the law to be able to work in their favor and the best of both sides. So I think that there should be no federal government involvement in them and have them be liable to lawsuits, liable to all these things that normal companies are also liable to. Because why I don't like the idea that the government favors certain companies. I don't like that at all. Because
I used to be a libertarian, kind of leaning conservative myself. I've actually done the opposite of you. You've shifted more libertarian, etc. But when I was like more of a libertarian Republican, I always knew the difference between being pro-market and pro-business. Being pro-business is not being pro-market. Like if you're supporting, that's almost corporatist, and that's kind of what we are now. You have these big, massive corporations that are effectively appendages of the state. I mean, they're very much tied into the state, and many of these corporations, they have massive defense contracts. They have massive, contracts with the federal government. They get privileges and protections from the federal government. So they're not operating in a free market. They're operating in a market where they already have inherent advantages given to them by the state. So I have a lot of friends of mine who are still pretty libertarian, and they agree with me on this, and they probably agree with you that, if you really want to tackle it, it's not, we don't need more government. We just need to return to a truer free market, which I understand and I respect. I do think there is like this division you were basically highlighting, like the paleoconservative or populist right, emerging, with the Trump movement compared to maybe more old-timey conservative views that were much more libertarian or fusionist and much more free market. I do think that's a huge thing going on right now that I don't know if a lot of people are talking about except certain circles online, but there does seem to be a movement among the right that wants to shift left on economics. And then there's another movement, maybe more traditional, that's trying to maintain more of a free market approach. So, I mean, it's an interesting dynamic that's changing the party.
Totally. It puts me in a weird situation. So I'm also involved with Today's America. It's like a brand new, just started over COVID, kind of something similar to Turning Point USA, but it's primarily on TikTok. It's just starting out. That's where like all the conservative TikToker influencer type people are in. And a lot of the times, there's a huge divide in it between libertarians and the paleoconservatives. And we have debates about this all the time on Zoom. I definitely struggle with this because I get a lot of comments saying, if you support Trump, you can never post anything supporting Ayn Rand or Ron Paul or libertarianism. You can never call yourself a capitalist. And I'm like, no, I can support Trump but not agree with everything he does, right? Like
right.
Part of the reason
that's part of being part of politics. You have to, you're never going to find anything perfect. It's give and take. You got to understand, like, you're winning battles on the margins. It's all about, incremental improvements. If you're just going to be an absolutist with everything, and it's like, well, I'm not going to support anyone unless they're like a doctrinaire libertarian. It's like, then don't get involved in politics because you're never going to get that.
Right. Plus, no one else thinks exactly like me. We're all, I call myself an individualist. There's no one on earth that thinks exactly like me. So my whole thing is with Trump, and I loved him in 2016. I was a senior in high school and I was so outspoken in support of Trump. I loved him. And part of the reason I love him so much is maybe not so much his policies, but kind of the reason why most people hate him, but it's his rhetoric. I love the culture around him. I love how he's woken so many people up, how he's kind of like the big, middle finger to correctness and like the mainstream media. I love the culture around him, seriously, because I don't know where we would be with the soft-spoken, traditional. And I would never want to be part of a party. I mean, I guess I would vote for them if I could vote at the time. The alternative is terrible, but
right.
I like the direction that Trump is bringing the Republican Party into.
No, and I completely agree with you. And I mean, honestly, he had a ton of libertarian positions. I mean, if you just look at foreign policy, you mentioned Ron Paul and other people. I mean, no one had a foreign policy that Trump did in recent memory that was so anti-interventionist, anti-war. He didn't start any wars. He brought troops home. He tried to scale back, the interventionism abroad. He, did a lot to advance peace on the Korean Peninsula, I mean, in the Middle East, et cetera. I mean, so he has been a peace president. I mean, he's had failings for sure. It hasn't been perfect. But from like a libertarian perspective, I mean, on that front alone, he's been fantastic. I mean, he did some decent things on the economy as well. And I also like how you brought up the fact that you liked him from his rhetoric and his cultural standpoint. I fully agree. I think a lot of people, they have the opposite view. They'll say, oh, I like his policies, but I just hate his tone. I said, no, his tone is what's been great because he's been able to go after the media because they've had a lot of just dishonesty just flowing through their ranks. He's been able to go after the deep state. He's been able to go after, big tech, big corporations. I mean, it's his kind of like combative nature, his sort of, his rhetoric basically that really changed political dynamics in this country, I think for the better. I don't think we're ever going to be able to go back to a Republican like Mitt Romney who just wants to lose gracefully or just never fight back, never punch back, just constantly take abuse, get called all sorts of things and not push back. I mean, I think that's a failing strategy. No one respects that.
Yeah, I totally agree. And with foreign policy, a quick note, I think that was one of his best areas. I'm not a foreign policy expert whatsoever. I think it's very complicated. And I also take the position that we only know what the government wants us to know. So it's really hard to trust anything. So we don't really know what's going on, but just based on, common sense, I don't want to be the world's policeman, right? I don't want that. But I do think that we need to be in some countries because how else would we know what to expect incoming threats if we're not there? How would we know incoming threats? But what I love about his foreign policy, and it makes common sense, we don't need to be starting conflicts, but if we build our military up so the world knows how strong we are, and if you ever try to mess with us, we will eliminate your problem that you're trying to start that day. That's right. The best way to, deter any problems. That's
walk tall, carry a big stick type of thing, like Teddy Roosevelt style. We're not getting involved overseas to advance other countries' interests. If we have to, it's for our own interest, and we're gonna, we'll be peaceful with everyone, but just don't fuck with us, so to speak. So I mean, I think, and he's done that and it worked. I mean, it was a good policy. I think we're gonna lose a lot of that. I mean, with the election of Biden, I mean, it's just gonna revert basically to the previous status quo, which was endless wars, endless spending overseas. And what's pissed me off about a lot of these moderate Republicans, and I want to ask your opinion on it, there was the whole debate over the stimulus checks, the $2,000 direct payments. Normally, I would not be really supportive of sort of just random direct, assistance packages like that. I would be more open and amenable to it. Now, just given the fact that it was government that shut down the entire economy, it was government that shut down people's businesses, it was government that prevented people from working, it was government that created this mess. So if you're going to create this mess, you owe it to the people to at least support them if you're going to drive everyone into destitution because of a disease with a 99.7% survival rate. And at the same time, there were the more libertarian-leaning Republican members of Congress like Rand Paul, Massey, I think even Gates, et cetera, who voted against that bill. But they've always been like that. So I was fine with them voting against it because they were principled. They've always been against more government spending. I don't care. That's their view. What I can't stand, however, are the so-called like moderate, more establishment Republicans who have zero problem spending the same amount of money overseas to do absolute nonsense, to go towards the transgender programs in Pakistan or whatever it is, all this crazy crap. Gender studies in Pakistan.
Amazing.
They're all for that, but God forbid you give someone $1,000 check after you told them they can't go to work and they can't open their business. I mean, that's where I just can't stand the hypocrisy.
I completely agree with you. So this whole situation is just a mess, right? The government should never, the fact that people think it's okay that the government is able to decide whether or not you can open up your business is preposterous to me. I think It's absurd and it's scary. The government now has seen how much the American people are willing to give up, like how much of their freedoms they're willing to give up in the name of, public health and safety. But yeah, no, I totally agree. I definitely agree with the approach of voting no on these things. But at the same time, if it's the government forcing everyone to shut down, then the government has to do something because how are these people going to survive? But the problem with that is it's not the government's providing us with the money, right? It's not the government providing us this magical money out of nowhere. It's the taxpayers eventually. And yes, printing money and inflation in the future, we will have to deal with it. So I just hate that people will frame it as the government needs to help us. And I'm like, it's not the government though. Like, and they will never have to face the consequences. So the whole situation is annoying. I completely agree with you. The fact that they're okay to fund gender studies in Pakistan, which I doubt that it's even gender studies in Pakistan. Like, I wonder what that really is going to, because I have a hard time believing that.
It's all grifting. I feel like someone is getting this money and just laughing, because like the amount of pork and the amount of just crap that are stuffed into these bills, it's like no one can read the bills. They're thousands of pages long. It's like you don't know where this stuff is going. You can't audit it. You can't be sure. I mean, and they're just spending millions of dollars like it's nothing. And it's just insulting to most Americans who can barely pay their rent, who could barely support themselves. And it's like government is just throwing millions away like it's like petty change.
Yeah, and I wish it was millions. It's billions,
Well,
trillions.
yeah, and those, yeah, you're right. I don't even know why I said millions, billions. Yeah, thank you.
They're going to start inventing new numbers. But yeah, I think it was even AOC. Well, hold on, you have to pronounce her name correctly. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, because,
Yes.
you can't call her by AOC, which is her Twitter name, because that's, derogatory and just rude, but whatever. She even pointed out that it's wrong that they literally handed them the stimulus bill over almost 3,000 pages, like something ridiculous, and they had a couple hours to vote on it. And she even made the point that this is wrong. And I was like, oh, good for you. You're actually sticking up. But she's sticking up for something that's right. But then she voted yes.
Right.
So,
that's the thing with her. Like, I don't get me wrong. I can't stand her. I think she's an idiot, and I hate most of her views. But when she does say something I agree with, I have no problem saying, okay, good for you. I agree with you. The thing is that like she sometimes has this thing where her rhetoric is always better than her actual votes. Like she also came out, attacking Pelosi and all this other stuff. And then she ended up voting for Pelosi. Like she's also kind of like a coward, kind of like Bernie Sanders, who, the left heralds as like their populist left-wing leader. And then he sells out for like a summer home, or he'll always sell out, and he always loses in these primaries where they obviously stole it from him, like the first time and the second time, just because of how they, not even like, I'm not talking about electoral fraud. I'm just saying they stole it from him because they consolidated the establishment around Biden, and they kept the left wing divided with him and Warren. So like these people, they talk a good game, but then they always fall flat. So I mean, it's just a joke. And then even the other day, I saw the other member of the so-called squad, Rashida Tlaib. She came out and saying, we can't expand the security state to target Americans. This is a bad move about political, because what was that guy, that CIA spook, John Brennan? He came out saying we have to target conservatives, libertarians, all this. And Rashida Tlaib, of all people, who I also can't stand, she actually said something decent, like I would vote against anything like this. So I'll give them credit when they deserve it.
No, see, I'm the same way. That's actually, I didn't know that. I heard John Brennan say that, and I was like, you're disgusting.
Yes.
Whatever, that's not surprising. But I did not hear that she said that. That's incredible. I saw when the whole stimulus package was being discussed, and gender studies in Pakistan was part of it. I saw Ilhan Omar actually tweet, I agree with President Trump, then President Trump.
I remember saying that, yeah.
Right. And I was like, wow, you guys are actually agreeing on something. I respect you for saying that. But on the other hand, I do think that she's very evil, to be honest, personally.
Yes.
I'm not saying I know this for a fact, but my personal views, I do think she's evil. But yeah, I will support, or not support totally, but support the action of anyone who's willing to go against, their own kind or their own party for something that they personally believe in. And they're not just someone that will, just say whatever everyone else around them is saying. Because again, I'm an individualist, so I don't I don't care to agree with people to, fit in. I'm very happy to disagree, but I don't just disagree with people to be a contrarian. I'm good with being me. So I really do respect them on that alone. But
no, and there's always that phrase that goes around. What is it? Country over party, which I like. The phrase itself, I agree with. It's just the people who use it, they all suck, and they all were mostly about party. Yeah, Lincoln Project, John McCain, all these people, like they have these great slogans and these lofty things. And it's like, well, of course, everyone agrees with that. Like a party should never be the end in and of itself. It should be a means to an end. You use the party to help advance whatever policy you want that you think is going to make the country better. I mean, obviously, everyone supports that, but they were able to grab it and make it their mantra in order to justify their ridiculous petty crusade against Trump, which is really what it came down to. These Lincoln Project hacks, they were all grifter hack consultants who couldn't even win elections. For some reason, they were all bald. I don't know what's the thing about being bald, having a goatee, and all being divorcees. And they all formed basically a nonprofit to attack Trump. And then they're the ones claiming, oh, no, this is about country. This isn't about me personally. This isn't about the party. What are you talking about? You guys are making millions on this grift. It's a joke. It's sick.
It is sick. And I'll tell you, for anyone that thinks that it's the Lincoln Project that's doing party over country, you don't have common sense. I'm sorry. That's just my opinion, because it's definitely the Democrats. And I know I'm from the right, so I'm biased, whatever. But let's not pretend like coronavirus wasn't a miracle for the Democrats in 2020. That was, so this is how I kind of looked at it with just life in general. Coronavirus, the whole pandemic situation, was like the worst thing, like a terrible thing that happened to good people, but the best thing that happened to bad people, because so many people use coronavirus as an excuse for everything. I just noticed that even without like not involving politics, but that it definitely was a miracle to the Democrats.
What you just said, not even involving politics, like I deal with people like personal day-to-day life, nothing political, who are just like, they were miserable people. They didn't do anything beforehand. And now they have like this whole mask culture and they have all the COVID stuff. So they could just be like little mini dictators, and they'll like, they'll police you for how you're wearing your masks or having parties or doing anything. Like I've had fights with neighbors because I walked out of my apartment once without a mask and it was like an empty hallway and they're like losing their mind. And I'm saying, you guys just wanted an excuse. This is just so great for you because you just needed something to hide your miserableness behind, but now you get to do it through like politics or public health, and you get to feel virtuous about it. Because if you did that before COVID, everyone would just be like, oh, well, you're an asshole. Now it's like, oh, no, I care about old people. That's why I'm doing it. It's a joke.
No, that's exactly right. And I hate that whole moral superiority over people because, oh, if you don't wear a mask or if you hang out with people, and guess what? I'm not someone that loves to be like, I'm very, like, I like to be by myself. I'm not like a party or anything. So it's not even like I'm biased in that way, but I'm like, all these people that hate on everyone, I see it on TikTok all the time, right? Some TikTok kids will have parties. I remember this like content house in LA or something. The mayor literally shut off their electricity and heat, or no, their AC and whatever. So it was in the middle of the summer in LA.
Oh, yes. LA has lost their minds. Garcetti, he shot like because they had a party.
Yes. I'm like, how is anyone okay with this? Like, what a dictator. That's disgusting. But I would see all these, miserable people with, she, her pronouns in their bios, just like, making videos about, oh, these people went to a party. They don't care about old people. They don't care about everyone dying. I'm like, no, you're probably just jealous because you weren't invited to any parties. And if you had friends, you probably would have a party. Right. So stop taking out your jealousy and trying to act like you're morally superior when you're just a hater.
On New Year's Eve, I had a party in my place, and my neighbor literally left a note on my door. And also, like, the apartments next to me are vacant. So it's like, and it's also New Year's. Like, there should be an excuse. Like, I'm not throwing a party on, like, a Wednesday in the middle of the week. It's New Year's Eve. No one has anywhere to go tomorrow. And they leave a note on my door, and they're like all smiley faces. It's all, like, hand-drawn. It's just like, hope you guys are having a great time. Like, we're young, too, but we're staying home. We don't want people to die. And it's, like, big caps and all this. And I'm like, what kind of, like, lunatic psychopath like leaves that? Like, how miserable do you have to be that you're upset that other people are having a party on New Year's and you're not? And then the other day, like, I saw through my peephole, like, what they looked like, because I've never seen them. They had a visor and 3 masks on, and I was just like, you have got to be kidding me. And they're like young people too, which is like the dumbest thing. If you're not a smoker, if you're in good shape, good health, and you're young, the chances of you dying from this thing are less than like dying in a car crash. So it's like, just have some common sense, like practice basic hygiene. Like, I'm not saying, if a business requires you to wear a mask, obviously wear a mask, but like, calm down. Like, seriously, calm down.
Yeah, these people are insane. I've seen people like that too, where, if I'm going to the local post office, right? And I always see the sign like essential heroes. I'm like, can we just stop pretending like people that work at USPS are essential heroes? Because it makes me want to puke every time I see it, which is often.
Everyone's essential.
Yes, so essential. So I know that's another thing. I hate the government, right? They get to decide who's essential and who's not. That's just ridiculous. But
if I built a business from scratch, Dave Portnoy is always talking about this. If I built a business from scratch and then someday, it just gets arbitrarily shut down, there's nothing I can do, and I'm told I'm not essential, I would lose my mind. I would be beyond angry. Like, I would just, like, imagine taking everything you've built over years from you in the matter of a few months. And they've done that here in New York. They've done it across the country. They've killed small businesses. They've killed the economy. And honestly, we were talking about Trump earlier. I think his biggest mistake was that and I made this mistake early on in COVID too, because, and I'll be the first to admit it, I was wrong. When it first came out, when the virus was coming out of China, I was a little skeptical. China's sketchy. You can't trust anything that comes out of there. If I see a disease, I remember the videos, people were like passing out, like seizing on the floor. And I was like, oh my God, this is bad. Like, so I was like, all right, well, definitely, like, we have to, deal with this. But the second we found out, like, it was kind of akin to a bad flu and we had therapeutics and all these things, like, the economy never should have been shut down. I mean, when he did the 15 days to slow the spread, I understand looking back it made sense, but really once he opened the door to lockdowns, to the business closures, to all that stuff, which I don't think he wanted to do, but it was like this kind of hysteria that pushed him to it with Fauci and whoever. That kind of sealed his fate because the economy was skyrocket. It was doing really well, and then it just collapsed in a matter of months. And the polling before COVID, he was going to win in like a landslide, in an absolute landslide. And then this happened, and it didn't matter that he managed it well. Once that whole precedent was set that you could shut down your economy, all the Democratic governors figured out, all right, well, we'll just tank the economy and it'll hurt Trump, and then we'll reopen it a second he's gone, and which is what they're doing now.
Right. So yeah, that's the difficulty, right? Because Trump's approach was honestly like a pro-federalism. He let the state decide how they wanted to deal with it, and the left and the Democratic governors, are the amazing leader, Emmy Award winner, Governor Cuomo of New York.
Governor nipple rings.
Yes. Wait, that's actually something that. Why is that real?
That's real. That's 100% real. Like everyone, like no one talks about this. Like, why does this guy have nipple rings?
I literally made a TikTok one time and no one even addressed it, like with a picture of him. And I was like, let me know when you see it. And no one addressed it. I'm like, how are you guys just skipping over the fact that this is my theory. And I know this is like something that people probably don't care about. But my theory is, because I'm pretty sure one of his profile pictures, like on Twitter or something, is him at some like gay pride parade. My theory is he like got those for the gay pride parade and it seemed like he's fitting in. You know how like the left, like a lot of Democrats try to. So they
that's a crazy theory. That is a crazy theory.
Listen, why would he have nipple rings? And why? Okay, if he did have nipple rings and whatever, that's his thing. Why would he make it so it's like obviously
the tightest of polos, like this tight polo in the summer, and it's like no one wants to see that. But you do have a point here, because I honestly think he is, like, psychologically speaking, I think he is a textbook definition of a sociopath. He thinks he's amazing. He doesn't hear any outside opinion or advice. He doesn't think he's doing anything wrong. He has no qualms about having stuffed the nursing homes and killed all these old people. He is a sociopath. Like his little monologues and his like folksy demeanor, that's just him, like just self-aggrandizing and like perpetuating his own ego. Like, so honestly, if you told me he got nipple rings because he thought that would help him win over like gay voters, something in me thinks that could be true.
Yeah, well, I totally agree with you. He definitely might be a sociopath. This is how I see a lot of things that just things in the political culture that have been happening lately. It seems like everything's some like sort of Saturday Night Live like parody of situations. Like, are you telling me that the worst governor, like the governor who handled coronavirus the worst, like when they try to say that there's deaths on Trump's hands, there are literally deaths on Cuomo's hands. Like, it's insane. Right. And he actually wrote a book on his leadership about handling the coronavirus pandemic. And
while it was happening.
And he also won an Emmy. I can't eat, like, it's like a joke. It's literally like a joke, but no, it's actually the reality. That's really what's happening.
But people like, I mean, I talk to friends of mine from high school who are like kind of normies and they're not like that involved in politics, but they think they're informed because they'll watch CNN or they'll read like the New York Times, and I'll meet with them and they're like, oh my God, Cuomo's doing such a good job. I'm like, you guys are brainwashed. You guys are deluded. Like, do you actually know what Cuomo's doing? And I'll bring up the nursing homes and it just goes like right over their head and they have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm like, he's literally responsible for the worst COVID response, not in the country, but in the world. Like, I think New York had some of the highest per capita death rates, and people think that he has been like a savior. I'm like, you guys are clueless. He's destroyed the economy. He's handled it horribly. And like, they don't want to hear it. They're just living in la la land. And like, he surprisingly still has decent approval numbers because the media, that's how powerful the media is. And we were talking about it earlier with big tech. They're trying to shut down discussion, shut down, exchange of ideas, because if they can control that, they control the narrative, and you'll never hear any counter views. You'll never hear the real facts or the real side of the story. And they could just perpetuate lies like that Cuomo is a savior and he deserves an Emmy. That's why the big tech thing is super scary and people really need to get, wise up to it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's like the same exact thing as I said earlier. It's they just want to make sure that the least amount of eyes actually see the other side, right? Because the less people that have ever been exposed to it, the less people that will know. So that's why they're so quick on shutting everything down and removing stuff. But, I totally agree. And the easiest way to debunk Cuomo's leadership, so-called leadership, is compare it to Governor DeSantis in Florida, right? He literally had the state open. They have also a large population, an older population who is obviously, as we know, as if you follow the science, they're more vulnerable to, being really badly affected by the virus, maybe dying. So, and they had a way better numbers, and what I don't know the exact numbers, but I know comparatively they're way better. So how are you? And then they'll demonize DeSantis. They will literally demonize DeSantis. It's just
they're scared of him. They're scared of him because they know he's a good governor. He's very popular, and he probably has presidential aspirations, which is probably my next question. So they need to create this narrative that he managed the state horribly when Florida is doing everything better. Everyone I know and their mother is moving to Florida, and it's like it's like a booming state, but they're going to pretend like things are horrible. And every time I have people go down there, they come back and they're like, yeah, I don't know what anyone's doing in New York or the Northeast or wherever. But what do you think about DeSantis 2024? I mean, he's my top choice. I know he's been a little bit on the fence in terms of running, but I think he's not as charismatic as Trump, but he has that element to him that he can punch back, that he could hit back at the media. I think he's a way better administrator, and he knows the system well. He was a congressman. Now he's a governor. He knows the legislative side of things. He knows the executive side of things, and he's just good on the issues. So I think a lot of Trump's biggest shortcomings, particularly in the first 4 years, in my view, were that he didn't know how government really works, so he got played a lot. And he like, we kind of squandered the first 2 years a bit with Congress being in our control. He made bad personnel decisions. A lot of the people he picked ended up backstabbing him and not being loyal, which created a lot of drama and turnover. I feel like with DeSantis, having his political background and experience could be really a ticket for something great.
Right. He's actually the only person besides Trump. I don't know if he's actually running again, but he's the only person that I would be excited about. Everyone else that everyone's floating around, Dan Crenshaw and Nikki Haley, I'm like, ugh. Ew. I mean, I'll vote for them, but like, ew, I'm not excited about them at all.
God. I agree with you. Trump and DeSantis are my top two choices. My only issue with Trump is I feel like he'll be very old. I mean, he'll be pushing there in the age limit. And I also think, if he's deplatformed and he's unpersoned, it's going to be very hard for him to run the kind of campaign that he did in 2016, which was all about earned media, which was all about taking advantage of social media. Like, they used to say to win the presidency, you had to be good on radio. You had to have a good radio voice. Then after 1960 with Nixon and Kennedy, it was like, are you good on TV? If you're good on TV, you could become the next president. And now it's like, are you good on social media? And he mastered it. Like his stream of consciousness, like you were talking about earlier with his rhetoric and everything, that's what people loved. Like, and all these like pundits in DC, they're like, oh, well, his tone. It's like people loved him for his tone. But as far as Haley and Crenshaw are concerned, and people like that, they're the most contrived, phony, manufactured candidates. They've been on the wrong side of every major issue. They have no real beliefs. They're just total neocon establishment types. And like Haley is basically the new Jeb Bush. They are forcing her on everybody. They keep putting her up on TV, and it's like I'll see her on interviews and TVs. I'm like, she's not impressive. She's not impressive. Okay, she was the governor of South Carolina, and she was the UN ambassador for 5 minutes. Like why is she going to become president? Like it's stupid. It's ridiculous.
Because she's a woman. Yay!
I'm glad you said it. I wanted you to say it.
Yeah,
but that's what they think. They think, oh, we'll put up a woman and we'll get more votes. It's like no one votes like that. No one votes like that. No one goes
left.
Yeah, maybe the left, maybe, but I've seen
they do, but they really don't.
I've seen studies that show that when they measured female candidates, and it's actually other females are less likely to vote for you if you're a woman. They've actually, like, those numbers are out there. Like, there's no correlation between having a female candidate and winning more female support. Yes, sometimes they will, but it's like sometimes they've seen drop off. So like this whole notion that they could just put up like whatever kind of candidate for like diversity points, whether it's, race or gender or whatever, all 72 genders, it doesn't actually make a difference. It doesn't do anything.
Yeah, I just hate the entire notion. Like, why are we promoting sexism and racism? I just don't, in the name of being morally superior. That's one of the main topics I talk about. Is I cannot stand feminists at all, and they cannot.
So you're not a feminist. You're not a feminist.
I call myself an anti-feminist. That's the main topic of all my videos. I just cannot stand feminists. They also comment on a lot of my videos, and I'll like make a video responding to their comments because it's what they call me, someone that. So what they call me is a pick-me girl. I don't know if you've heard that term before.
No idea what that is.
So basically, it's like me saying, like, I'm a conservative, whatever. I talk badly about feminists, and I'm like, oh, please, any man, please pick me. It's just the same thing that they'll say about, Black conservatives. They're trying to, like, appeal to the white people. Pick me. It's the same exact mentality.
it's like they get away with that kind of thing, but God forbid you say anything equivalent to that about their views and what they do. I mean, because a lot of what they're doing is just pandering. It's racism of low expectations. It's just and it's masquerading as, oh, we're virtuous, or they're guilty of the things that they preach about, like, oh, we're super anti-racist when they're the biggest racist, that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
God forbid you say that to them, but they're able to do that to any kind of conservative leaning person. So, what's your biggest gripe with feminism? Because I want to end on this topic because it's a good topic. I never talked about it really with anyone on the show. Well, actually, I have, but not like too much in depth. It seems like feminism, obviously, like there was the first wave of feminism, which was obviously about gaining equality before the law. Obviously, everyone would be generally for that. And that's already been achieved. Now it just seems like this new wave of feminism is kind of like a first world problem. Like they're creating problems that either don't exist or exaggerated and claiming it's because of like this patriarchy or sexism that's holding women back. And then the only way to break that down is to either expand government or hate men or hate Christianity or hate like the nuclear family or just hate any basis of Western civilization. So it just seems like a destructive ideology that has nothing to do about helping women.
Right. That's exactly why I hate it. It's the biggest hypocritical joke in that there is, right? So I would have maybe been a feminist when, in the 1920s when they were fighting for women's suffrage, women's right to vote, whatever. I agree. Equality. That's the thing is I will have people comment, oh, so you don't want equal rights and why do you vote? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I am an anti-feminist because I believe in equal rights.
Right.
And also today, all these feminists actually put themselves in a worse position because when you just sit there and complain about everything, it makes you people don't want to be around you. And also that's the worst thing you could do to actually succeed. You don't want to just sit there and complain. What you want to do is actually have hard drive, work, dedication. And in my view, if people are constantly telling me that I'm, at disadvantage because I'm a woman, I want to be like, okay, let me be so much better than everyone else and prove them wrong. And then if I get the position I want or succeed the way I want to, it's even more of like a great thing. I would never want to be chosen for anything because I'm a woman. And that besides that, I feel I've been a girl my whole life, right? I've been female my whole life.
Oh,
and
you have? Okay.
Yeah. No. Some people actually say, they'll call me a man because I don't have my pronouns in my bio. So I've they'll call me King. And they'll be like, "Go off, King." It's really funny. I'm like, it's what's ironic about it is they call me, they'll say he, him for me because they know I'm a girl without me having to put my pronouns in my bio. So that's the irony in that. But
that's the best way to you just have to make fun of them because the stuff that they promote is ridiculous. Like the pronoun stuff is easily one of the stupidest concepts I've ever seen in my life.
It's amazing. I think it's so funny. But yeah, I've been a female my whole life. I've thought it's only brought me only privilege. Like really, I've only felt privilege from being a girl. So I just don't know. I don't know what anyone else is talking about. It's men that are sent off for war. It's men that have to do the terrible jobs that women don't want to have to do. It's men that are, if there's work around the house, a heavy lifting, guess what? Usually guys just take care of it. Like we are privileged, and everyone's privileged in their own ways.
And everyone has disadvantages. Like the way I was raised when I grew up is life is not fair. There's no such thing as fairness. All right, you could be born poor, you could be born with one leg. There's no rhyme or reason. You just have to make do. And some people are going to be better off than you. Some people are going to be worse off than you. But we kind of touched on it earlier with the COVID stuff. A lot of people who are just miserable, who just don't want to accept their own station in life, who don't want to accept their own failings, they hide behind like this, whether it's COVID for the mask stuff, or they hide behind feminism to like justify their behavior or why they're miserable. And it's like, oh, I'm not just a miserable, lonely person. No. I'm a feminist. And like, I choose to be this way because I hate X, Y, and Z. And these are the reasons why I'm not happy. And it's like, you can't just use politics or use like this ideology to mask your own problems. You're only going to make it worse. And I think a lot of this, it's not even political. It really is like psychological. I mean, there is kind of the meme where a lot of feminists do tend to be on the uglier side, not the most attractive, not the most friendly people. And it just seems like, well, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Are they feminists because they're like that, or they became like that because of feminists? I think it could go both ways. I don't know.
It's like the feminism promotes trying to make yourself look as ugly as possible. I swear to God, the worst things are like the before and afters of a girl that looks normal, and then
it's like meth.
It's seriously, that's a great comparison. That's exactly right. But yeah, I mean, every time, like I get mentioned in videos all the time on TikTok, and whenever I go to the person's profile, it's always pronouns in bio. They look like these are the same. So they'll look crazy, right? Colored hair, like crazy makeup, like crazy outfits. And then these are the same people that if God forbid you react to the way they look, why do you care about the way I look? Well, you're screaming for attention.
That's
right?
all it's attention. It's attention. It's literally, it's like people that you went to like high school with or middle school with that like would do just ridiculous things for attention, and they just never grew up, and they've just maintained the same thing, and now they're like, oh, I'm just gonna dye my hair purple, I'm just gonna get piercings all over my face, I'm gonna get a face tattoo, and I'm gonna dress like a man. It's like, and if you don't respect me for that, or if you don't think that's attractive, then you must be a sexist.
Yes, no, and the same thing. Well, you know, Harry Styles wore like a ball gown for the Vogue cover that was like trending a while ago, and I made a couple of videos about that, and people were very upset. And my whole point was, well, the only reason he did that was because it's abnormal for a man to wear dresses, right? He did that to like shock the world and shock the country because that's abnormal. But then people would say men can wear dresses. Jesus used to wear dresses, and I'm like, okay. I don't really care. You know, I'm not even.
He did wear a dress. They wore like togas and tunics like that. They didn't have pants, but they didn't wear dresses.
And then the people in the comments will literally say to me, then you can never wear jeans or a suit. And I remember making a video about this and saying, I bet you could go into any office building in America every day and you will find at least one woman wearing jeans or a suit. Try to find me one man wearing a dress.
Right. I mean,
like stop pretending it's normal.
It's a false comparison. It's just so stupid. And like these are literally first world problems. It's like these are the things that like upper middle class tends to be white suburban liberal people, men and women, or even like in the cities as well, but it just tends to be like an upper middle class white thing where they're just like they need to create problems for themselves because they basically are spoiled because they do live in the United States, they are well off, they went to great schools, liberal arts schools, they make a lot of money, and they're just like bored, and they need to create up these stupid problems and these stupid things like they need to campaign for to feel great about themselves. And they're basically like LARPing like civil rights leaders, or they're like LARPing as like first wave feminist suffragettes. It's like you guys aren't fighting for anything of note. You're just basically stupid children promoting ridiculous ideas for attention. I mean, that's how I view it. I think a lot of people view it the same way, even if they don't say it out loud.
You know, I totally agree. And I actually think it's very destructive, you know, feminism particularly, because it just promotes the idea, you know, we hate all men, all of them for no reason. They all suck, right? But, you know, we hate the sexist, but like, screw all men, they all suck. That's pretty obviously a contradiction. But so they teach people, you know, women that you should work, you don't want to be a mother. And I'm not someone that actually really wants kids. I've always been career oriented, but I do see the value of, you know, being a mother, that's part of the reason why I don't want kids, is because I want to have a full career. And I feel like if you have kids, you should be home with them as a mother. That's like your main duty. You should.
Like, how can you be pro-woman if you don't want certain women to make choices that say they wanted that? That's what they're like, such hypocrites. It's like, oh, I'm pro-female. It's like, all right, well, what about the girl that wants to just, you know, have family and like kind of live a traditional life? It's like, oh, well, she's oppressed and she just doesn't know it. It's like, oh, so she can't make up her own mind, but your mind is like your path is the only way. That's like just, again, the hypocrisy of the whole thing.
Yeah, with everything, you know, they're pro-women unless it's someone that disagrees with them, and you could apply that to every single thing. You know, they're pro-black unless you're a black conservative. You know, right. You could apply it to everything. So that's exactly right. So yeah, I just hate how, especially with feminism, they claim, Black Lives Matter, or, you know, Antifa, they claim to be fighting for a certain cause or a group of people that they're actually against. Because if you really were pro-women, you know, pro-women making choices for themselves, you wouldn't be demonizing or belittling stay-at-home moms and saying that like they don't really have like a real job and they're not really doing anything, when that's probably the hardest job in the world and a really respected job. So stop pretending like you care about women, but like obviously they will continue to pretend like they care about women. This will never stop, but that's why I talk about it a lot, because it's obviously all just a lot of crap. It's not true. They don't really think that.
It is ridiculous. They're just great at marketing and hiding behind, you know, nice lofty ideals and slogans rather than, you know, having good ideas and real values. But
and that's
this
why
has
they
been
need big tech to protect them and to censor good ideas, because how else
and they think that they're the anti-establishment. They think they're fighting the system. They have everyone and their mother supporting them, whether it's big tech, big media, big pharma, big government. Like, they have all the powers that be propelling them. But they live in this la-la land delusional world where they think, oh, well, you know, we're the real freedom fighters. We're really going up against the system. It's like, no, you guys are the system, you idiots. But we could talk about this for hours, but I know we're pushing up on the hour mark here. But I'm really glad you came on the Waxcast. I would love to have you back on. And I want to give the last word to you. Please let our listeners and viewers know where they can follow you, how they can stay in touch and keep up with your latest work.
All right. So if you have TikTok, or if you don't, download it. It's actually a lot of fun. My username for that is just at capitalist Isabella. And then my Instagram is just at the Isabella Riley. I hate how they're all different, but literally I can't get us one username to be the same.
I was going to say, it's not good for your brand consistency, but I guess
I've been working on it. I'm
trying
to figure out something. My name Isabella is just too long. It's work and it's difficult, and Isabella Riley's taken on everything. So it's a work in progress, but that's how it is for now. And on Twitter, it's Isabella Riley C. But if you were to go to like my Instagram or TikTok, I have everything linked. So if you were to find one place, I also link all my accounts on every single Instagram post I do. So yeah, so that's how you can find me. But yes, I've really enjoyed this, and I would love to come back on.
Awesome. Thank you. And this has been a great episode, episode 30. We finally broke 30 episodes, guys, and stay tuned for more episodes. And don't forget, if you're listening on iTunes, to leave us a 5-star review, like, subscribe, follow us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, the whole thing. And we will be back very soon with another episode of the Waxcast. Thank you for joining us, Isabella.
Thank you.